We are the Ghouls Next Door media literacy show from a horror lens where we explore the real life, historical, psychological, cultural influences behind our cinematic fears. And we are closing out our It Is Written series with one of my all-time favorite writers. I'm so glad that we're covering him. His work spans, it's horror, and each one is so unique and exciting, and he definitely has this real love for the genre, and he's made a space for himself there. And so we're talking about Stephen Graham Jones. We're going to hop in because I got two great books to tell you about. And I'm really glad. So originally when we were going to cover this, my pitch to Kay was The Only Good Indians, because that's like one of his very well-known books. And I also was like, Kay's going to eat this up because it's got a lot of history in it and culture, folklore. So I was like, this is going to be a really great like Kay contribution. And then we have Mongrels, which is one of my all-time favorites of his. I just really love the Honest Family like dynamics, and I just felt like I was there, and it just spoke to me in a very specific way. I definitely want to like reread it and give it its flowers at some point, but that was my original pitch. And then last year he came out with Buffalo Hunter, and I was struggling to get my hands on a copy. Finally bought one from a local shop. And when I read it, I was like, okay, full stop. Like, this kind of changed my life a little bit.
Yeah,
I have to like, I was like, Kay has to read this. I was like, I would be such a disappointment of a producer if I did not get this in your hands.
No.
So,
I mean, I finished it 5 minutes before we started recording, and I do agree my life has been changed. So it is a really great book.
Yes, it'll haunt you forever. And I think The Only Good Indians too, like haunting.
Yeah.
So let's start with The Only Good Indians, which is from 2020. Stephen Graham Jones is a griot for the outcasts, the deadbeats, and those of us trying to get by. He writes about flawed people, real history, and supernatural beasts in a way that feels like it's all happening right outside, right now. We chose two of his more famous works to cover in this episode, but I needed to be known that I am a true SGJ fan. I try to read a couple of stories every year, and I'm always delighted to see his world build up from darkness and rubble. The characters in his stories aren't good people, but they're not bad either. They're simply people, in all our rugged intricacies and visible mendings.
It's almost like it's not an inherent thing.
Right.
And that all choices have good and bad.
Yeah, we're complex. And he just gets that. It's so good. Like, you could be mad at someone and also be like, but do they deserve that? Some of us, literally. Yes. Some of the characters, they did deserve that, actually.
I can think of one in the book I just read.
I know, I can't wait to hear. So The Only Good Indians is a heartbreaking, relentless story that leaves bright red scars. It is a story of bleak history, gory mistakes, folklorish retribution, and the weight of surviving each day as it comes. If The Only Good Indian is a dead Indian, then this book has a lot of really bloody good Indians. Right? He got that title playing on that like turn of phrase that's kind of heard in a lot of like Westerns and that kind of wild, wild west scene, right? Of this idea of like, they are the enemy. And so he kind of twists that on its head. The Only Good Indians is
like,
about...
if you're going to be gross. Huh? He's like, if y'all are going to be gross, I'm going to take this back.
Right. Yeah, okay. Well, that title also is really well for Buffalo Hunter. He references it in a way. So, but The Only Good Indians is about 4 people, guys, friends, Indians, and each one trying their best, however that looks for them. These 4 Blackfeet teens tried their hand at being the heroes of Thanksgiving, hunting on grounds off limits, only reserved for elders, and near the end of the season. The day spells out all the ways they should be warned away from this decision. So there's like several instances of their truck getting stuck. There's a fear of like a stern reprimand from an elder. And there's more. Like, there's so many of like these red flags littered along this path.
Like take the signs from the universe.
And they're like, oh, just gotta try harder. Nothing deters these boys. And they press on and they get lucky as hell. A whole herd of elk becomes their desperate plea for notoriety and for respect. This feeling of worthiness, the weight that propels them forward into a frantic, graphic reign of terror on the herd. And this is their Thanksgiving classic, they call it.
Yeah, what a lesson.
Only it's not the magical life-meaning event they dreamed it would be. In fact, it's horrifying and wasteful. After being caught by the game warden, they have to leave the corpses of all these elk that they just massacred, including a young elk and her brutalized half-born calf that's like born out of the viscera of being murdered. Now it's 10 years later, and our Thanksgiving hunters are being hunted. First, we lose Ricky in a brief but tense altercation outside a bar. The hunter is revealed in shadows and desperate acts of survival, an elk-head woman or Ponoka. Next is Lewis, with the unfortunate name, Lewis Clark, living off the res with his wife, his white wife, Peta. That's important. His interactions with Ponoka is worse, I think, even than Ricky's, because Ricky's end was like brutal, but it was at least quick. Right, where Ricky,
and he had like more dignity at the end.
Yeah, he was fighting. Like, he went out fighting, and it was like unfortunate. It was like, well, that sucks.
Yeah,
like, and that's the headline too, right? Like, Indian beat to death outside a bar. Like, it was a run of the mill, unfortunate situation. Lewis on the other side, right? So where Ricky faces down the darkness of stereotypes and violent prejudice, Lewis is assaulted by insanity, the horrors of paranoia, guilt, and a yearning for home. And then lastly, there's Gabe and Cassie, whatever he is this week, whose last bit of the story is like a Rune Goldberg machine of cruelty and distress. It's like spirals out. It's like Final Destination level. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And it's so fast. You're like, I can't hold them.
How'd they get there?
Who's that now? And then you turn around. It's like you're there. Yeah. Like, as like a reader, you're in that spot where like, it's just chaos, and there's no, like, you don't know who to trust. Everyone's dissolving into like hysterics, and just like no one trusts each other, and no one knows which way is up, and it's rough. And it's brilliant, but it really is like a Final Destination of like, why was that? And that is over there, and who's that?
Yeah. No,
like, how dare you?
All these things set up to one another. Yeah. The coin fell in the pool. Now
right, and exactly. Like,
you're like, what do you mean?
You're like, no one is safe. No one is safe. The whole time you're like, maybe this one's gonna get it.
Yep.
Jones is the only good Indians, warns us against leaving things in the past. Onoka comes for each of these boys seeking retribution. It is a violent and breathless dark comedy in that brilliantly funny but guilty way that Jones is so good at. Like, you laugh and you're like, why am I laughing? Especially Lewis.
Yeah.
Because he was doing like crazy stuff. Like, he was unhinged, and you're feeling for him because you're like, why did you do that? And then he's like making jokes to himself, or he's like, Lewis is a very fun character because he felt really relatable. And he's talking about his books, and I'm like, boy, what is going on? Like, you do crazy
I mean, if
stuff.
you're gonna lose your mind, at least be a little funny along the way, you know?
And he is. He's like, here you go. But the only good Indians is an onslaught of bad decisions stacked on desperate ones, and no one comes out the other side in one piece. The only so my review for it is The Only Good Indians is heavy and depressing as fuck. I would never sugarcoat SGJ's work. Having read 10 of his books now, I can promise you he lacks a sweet tooth. It's not there. And when I read him, I know it's going to hurt. Like, a lot. And The Only Good Indians hurts like hell, because you really truly feel for these boys who are now men, generally doing their best, and at the very least, not their worst. Like, they could have been worse. And they say that, you know?
No, and a lot of it's like not entirely their fault. Like, it's all like systemic, circumstantial things that kind of stack on top of each other with this bad choices, bad decisions
of kids. Like, they were young, you know, and they had big shoes to fill in a place where like those shoes are really important to be wearing, you know? And I really understood their desperation behind the Thanksgiving classic of needing to feel bigger and more important than they are allowed to. They make a youthful, violent, bad decision that comes at them just as fiercely. And it pissed me off a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, because if Elkhead women could be stirred to life by a brutal, senseless act of violence, then where is the herd of Elkheads coming for the settlers and the colonists that murdered them in droves? It's a sadly misguided vengeance that was assault and a very large bleeding wound, and that's the entire point. Right? Like, she's twisted up. She's fighting at them, and I'm like, where's the other vengeance? Well, you're in the wrong place, which I think is Buffalo Hunter kind of satisfied that a little bit for me. Like I got a little bit more of that retribution, and it was definitely not misguided. It was right on track. But each of these guys was navigating their proximity to the res and to the weight of expectation as an Indian before their death. So Ricky was running from the res, hoping to find work despite of and because of his Indianness, right, of being known for their strength and hard work, but also for their desperation and pliable nature, right? They can be taken advantage of because they're trying to get by, and so they can work under the table, they can be let go, they don't get as many benefits. There's just this idea that we can
they don't have a choice.
Yeah, like we can discard them when we're done. And that's kind of like Ricky's whole thing. He's like working against that. But also he's like, I'm gonna leave before you discard me. Which is like, how he's operating in this world. But he's trying to leave the res. Lewis, in his last desperate act, is running home after having fought through his inner turmoil, his biracial marriage, and his conflicted sense of self. Like him not feeling fully Indian or feeling like he had left that behind. And I do want to say, using Indian, I know the term is like Native peoples or indigenous, but SGJ is using Indian in this story, and he does talk a lot about, especially I think it's Gabe who mentions it, where he's just like, we just, that's all we ever knew was Indian, and he sings this little lullaby. He's like, but now the new age is this thing. So they get to decide. So I did not.
Yeah.
So Cass and Gabe are still there on the res, and doing their versions of their best. Right? Cass is trying to establish himself, finding love and working hard, while Gabe gets through the days. The shadows of his spunky youth always hovering above him. Like they keep going back to him as being this like true, like gung-ho kind of Indian, where they're always like, he's the one who's like gonna get into a bar fight. He's the one who's gonna fight you. He's the one who's like hooting and hollering, and he's just this pure, vibrant energy. And now he's old. Now he's older, and he's just like, he's drinking his beers in his car, and his daughter can't talk to him. And, he only gets to see glimpses of her at her basketball games. And then Cass is just like trying. He's trying to fit into the molds. And it's a thoughtful glimpse into a very real existence on the res, that small town gossip where you become the stories of your youth, cautionary tales now grown and trying to survive. Like I think of how Denora, Gabe's daughter, knew a lot of the stories of their youth, and they were almost like they were like notorious. They were like known for that. Like those were concrete who they were forever now.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the Buffalo Hunter because it's like there's good stab, then there's takes no stab. Like like it's all defined by your actions. So like the fact they were notorious kind of influenced their identity, even if their names didn't reflect it.
And the names kind of did, right? Like there's like a dismissive quality to Lewis. Like the one, I forget the boy's name, but he's just like Lewis Clark. Like, they like scoff at him for that unfortunate name, but there's a reason why he got that, right? And Cass changing his name constantly. And then just like Gabe's like aura having a lasting effect forever. But there's another in this story of failed masculinity, Denora. So Denora is the daughter of the misguided and reckless Gabe, and she's a talented basketball player who's going to not only make a name for herself, but the whole damn res. Hell, for all of Indian kind. They're putting that all on her shoulders. And she's tangled up in this mess as the calf of someone who wronged Elkhead of Ponoka. Inheriting the sins of her father. She is literally fighting against generational trauma, and she breaks it with her compassion, which is the best part, right? She fights back through cunning, understanding, and through her sick skills on the asphalt, which is like, it's a heartbreaking in that ending. And she's looking at, her other dad. And I just felt so much for Gabe in that moment too. I was just like, he was just, he was trying.
My mom's just a girl. My dad's just a guy,
Right. And she loved him in the way that she could, but she also was like, this is my dad, and he showed up. It was sweet. And she was like, no, this is
we're going to change.
This is like, stop, everybody stop. We don't have to do that. Don't have to do that. it's the future. We're going to hurt our way through healing. So the Only Good Indians is about regular people, but it's also about a history of violence that has infected this country's soil. We talk about that a lot on the show, because Ponoka is a supernatural force of retribution that is a long time coming and a long time learned. Her violence at times pales in comparison to the history of colonialism towards elk and humankind alike. And Ponoka is a few centuries too late on a warpath, righteously so, against those who have harmed her. And it's her choice of victims and perpetrators, for sure, they're definitely guilty, that spins this story. Like, when that scene, like, when they are doing the Thanksgiving classic, is really brutal. And it's, like, horrifying. And it makes me think, like, what kind of person are you if you can do that? And I think that's important. It is significantly less painful than the Buffalo Hunter.
Yeah.
It was a walk in the park.
No, absolutely.
In comparison to Buffalo Hunter. I saw this review by Maria Haskins on this novel where she says, Jones pursues the idea of colonialism as psychic parasitism further, with the elk taking in the lessons of human violence and learning to revisit it themselves. In this way, colonialist violence becomes a cycle that threatens to suck family after family, animal after animal, down the drain, siphoning off those like Lewis, Cassidy, Gabe, Denora, and anyone else who might live a worthwhile life in spite of centuries of genocide, Indian wars, forced marches, language loss, and so much more. The violence of colonialism, it threatens to turn victims against one another, decentering responsibility for it, moving it off camera. Who's the enemy now? That's what she says. And I feel like The Only Good Indians feels much like a bloody and raw appetizer to Jones's Buffalo Hunter, which is a hearty meal of colonialist critique and dark history. It's like, you thought you knew about America. Or you knew you didn't. You knew you didn't know about America. And I'm going to tell you.
It's like so intentionally made too, where it's just like a lot of our history has been intentionally erased or not taught. So.
Right. And that's why I think like it is very intentional that he frames it in a recent history, right? That someone from our current day is finding something from the past and having to like relive it, and that we hear it and like experience it firsthand. I think having the bookends of bringing it to now is essentially what he's doing with this book, right? He's bringing this history to us now. So let's talk about the Buffalo Hunter, which came out in 2025. It does historical horror so insanely right. It's gritty and gruesome in its historical retellings. The most horrifying moments, scenes ripped from the pages of history books, literally ripped because so much of the truth is removed from them.
That part.
Talked about that many times, eh? They took it out and he was like, I found this. I found that you put this in the wall. I found it. I promise you've never read a vampire novel like this. SGJ offers a new spin on an old classic with the sunlight-sensitive good stab, takes no scalps, who takes on a few extra quirks for his vampirish nature. So the Buffalo Hunter is a story told through time, starting with Etsy Bocarn, a descendant of Lutheran pastor Arthur Bocarn, who comes into possession of his long-lost journal, and in an attempt to connect her life to something meaningful, she's like, I'm failing forward. She dives into his journals, hoping they weave an important tale of history, and boy, do they. Maybe not the one she wanted. Not gonna get her out of that hole.
It's like, oh, my ancestors sucked. Ow.
Shout out to Etsy though, because she could have taken the white woman way out of that. Of like,
run from accountability.
Slavery was 400 years ago. Like she could have like.
Yeah,
my ancestors, not me. She ain't doing that. She's like, sorry. You know what? My bad. It's not even me. Arthur Buchan is a seemingly kind man in 1912's American West in Montana. He's lived a long and storied life that led him to a small town for his parsonage, and something sinister is afoot here because there are exsanguinated bodies popping up, and a strange visitor lays out a troublesome confession. Arthur begins meeting with the black-robed Peconi Goodstab, who shares his life's dark tale dating back 40 years. And he's like, you look pretty young for having lived all of that. This ain't adding up. After a run-in with the Catman in a cage that leaves him in all meanings of the word dead, but he does come out the other side forever changed, more creature and all the things he hates, then Bikini at this point. This is Good Stab telling his confession, right? If the only good Indian is a dead Indian, as we explored in his book of the same name, then Good Stab is one bad Indian. As he says, what I am is the Indian who can't die. I'm the worst dream America ever had. Good Stab's confession will have you on the edge of your seat. While a hefty read, it is a breezy one because you cannot put it down. You really got to know what's going on. It's like, it's beefy.
Yeah, it might have been the fastest time I read a book, if it's really long. Because it didn't feel long.
You can't.
Yeah, no, at no point was I like, wow, this is taking too long. I was like, oh, it's almost done. What?
Right. Yeah. And it's comparable to Our Share of Night and
Look at me read this year.
Oh, sorry. You're doing it. No, it's good. Well, Good Stab is a guide. His life is a guided tour through America's dark history, sprinkled with supernatural terror and tragedy. My review is that SGJ has a knack for transforming folkloric monsters we've grown accustomed to, twisting them into a new, sympathetic, and terrifying creature, something entirely of his own making. He did this in Mongrels, the sometimes funny, most often dark, familial story about werewolves and ancestry. Definitely one of my favorites of his novels. And he's done it again in The Buffalo Hunter, now with vampires. His vampires are rare and depressing. The unkillable nature, a curse rather than an evolutionary advantage. Like, please kill me. Oh, this sucks. I don't want to be here. And he takes the you are what you eat quite literally here. When Good Stab chooses to hunt only the white enemies of his people, he finds himself slowly becoming one. What a nightmare. I woke up and I was becoming a white man.
Yeah, the people that are literally murdering my family. Yeah, exactly.
Please don't. Turn me into a fish. What? Yeah, I think, it was such, when you realize that, because he's growing his hair, he's growing like a beard, I was like, oh no. Now you can only eat your own?
Like extra
That's
level
insane.
Of out.
It's a really unique twist. Yeah, and it's a heartbreaking one. Because of that, like, to keep himself, he has to hurt others. And I think that's there's a lot of layers to that as well. But Good Stab's confession, or more his condemnation of the American settlers, is a haunting tour through history, like I said. Through him, we see firsthand the atrocities of this nation, the annihilation of the buffalo, the genocide of Native peoples, and the erasure of that truth. I think in that final scene, one of the final scenes at the end, where he says, you can't stop a country. Arthur says, you can't stop a country from happening. And then Good Stab says, we were already a nation. And I was crying. I was sobbing. Like, I was like, are you kidding me? And that's the beauty that, like, we're talking about. Like, there's these lines that, like, will stick with you in the midst of, like, just pure heartbreak and horror. And what's worse is it's all real. Right? Besides the fact that there's a vampire that's telling the story and that we get some form of retribution, those are the only supernatural, fantastical things that are happening in the story. The rest of it is true as hell. Not just the nation overall that's put on trial in this story, but it's both Good Stab and the good pastor Arthur who have much to answer for. SGJ offers us an amiable, sweet-toothed, kind-hearted man with an incredible knack for storytelling in Arthur. Etsy, comments that he's really good at being descriptive, and he's just got a way with words, and he just be talking to people, and he's just so, kind. In Good Stab, we find heartbreaking pride and a sense of immense loss, like internally, culturally, and environmentally. He's losing everything, always. But it's in their meeting and intimate confessions that they're revealed as complex monsters that they are, in stark contrast to one another, but equally dark and troubled. Good Stab is a phenomenal storyteller, keeping his people's history alive in himself and at the expense of himself, right? No matter the torture and pain that it brings upon him. And SGJ offers up some of the most haunting history I've ever read. And as we come to the end of Good Stab's confession, it becomes vibrantly clear that it is instead an accusation against Arthur. Our jovial man of the cloth has a hideous dark secret. And it says a lot about that, that a literal blood-sucking monster is infinitely more forgivable than a man of God. Yeah. Right? And there were moments in, Good Stab's history and his struggle. He's been struggling the whole time. The Catman is so, sinister. And he's just trying. Like, his whole scene with his dad, I'll be sad forever. Like, even before you get to, like, because it hurts the whole way through, and you're like, what could possibly be the big thing that, like, he's building up to and that he hates this man about? Because you start to pick up, you're like, he's hiding something. Like, there's a reason Good Stab's coming to you, and you're being sus, and you're holding back, and you held back all the way to the very end, and you're like, there can't, like, what could it possibly be? And then it's the worst thing you've ever read. And you're like, wait, it's worse because that's actually something that happened. And if you know anything about America's history, then of course you see this coming, but it still hits because SGJ has so skillfully humanized this pastor. After following and warming up to Arthur, while also feeling so intensely for Good Stab's troubled life, those final chapters feel like a knife to the gut. In The Buffalo Hunter, SGJ is bleeding out this history, revealing a seething wound that's never been healed, only covered up. And I am once again reeling from the intensity, emotion, and grief. And I just, do yourself a favor and read some Stephen Graham Jones. You will not regret it. It's going to change your life.
No, literally, and those, like, the words that you will read, as you said, will forever change you. You will just be so impacted by them. And I remember at the end of The Only Good Indians, I cried just because I was like, oh, thank God there's hope. And then at the end of this one, I didn't have time to cry because it was literally for this episode. But there had been other moments where it was just like, oh my God. I remember I texted you, like, literally right before. It was like, for pudding?
Yeah.
Are we for...
Right.
Oh, I hate it here.
Right.
Like, I was like, I could so see someone, like, if we think of, like, capitalism and the way, like, we're willing to sacrifice the cost of our production and, like, detach ourselves so fully that it's just like the way capitalism and America specifically dehumanizes things, that it's just like, absolutely, this, like, there's no doubt in my mind that this man did this for pudding, because of course his needs matter more, because he doesn't view these people as human. And I was
like, America stay murdering people for pudding. Like, we, like, you know, like a let them eat cake kind of moment. That's exactly it. And, like, I think it is in those moments too where, like, Good Stab, like, confronts him too, because he's like, oh, are you mad? Are you upset that these white people are dead? Because newsflash, I don't give a fuck.
No, literally.
And he's just like, do you hear yourself right now? Like, there's some moments where I feel like Good Stab's like, be fucking for real. Like, are you not? You don't hear that? You don't hear that? No? Okay.
Yeah, the racism,
like, what
in
you
there,
did
you
is crazy.
See.
And then you're walking around here and you're like, I'm going to eat this little biscuit from this old lady.
Yeah, and the way, like, you justify it and have such peace in your life. Like, yeah, you cried about it for a few years and you drank for... But, like, I get, like, if you made a mistake and did a bad thing, and, like, to an extent, obviously, you can be forgiven. But I think the depth for which he did a bad thing is, like, you cannot just be walking around eating cake and saying life's great. Like,
you do not get to not rest. Like, you do not get to rest. You do not get to, like...
And, like, you feel no, like, you've just accepted it. You're like, well, it had to happen. It's like, baby, it did not. It did
and
not.
The whole time he was a man of the cloth. You know, like, the whole time.
The hypocrisy, which is...
America, right? I think he did a really brilliant...
It's on purpose.
Yeah. That's what I think is in The Buffalo Hunter, by writing Arthur Barkarn as the way that he did, and having him be, like, kind of like a friendly, caring guy for so much of it. Like, it really, I think, was a brilliant representation of what was happening back then, right? Like, you have, like, this, like, the representation of, like, you know, the savages, right, with Good Stab, who is, like, everyone's afraid of him. And he's done monstrous things, like, to survive, right? And so they, like, you know, the whole time you're expecting him to have this confession and that he's evil or something. And then it's like, oh, surprise. It was this kind man, you know, with his little sugary desserts.
And it like forces, I think, America to, like, see themselves in the mirror kind of thing. Like, where it's like, you liked him and you do this to people all around you. You forgive these little things that are not little things. Like, you let things slide because you think, like, oh, they're good or they're kind or whatever. It's like, but they've done monstrous things. Like, and it's like, yes, obviously we see in the Only Good Indians, like some monstrous things. Sometimes it's just like a cyclical vengeance-y time and you need to let stuff rock. But some monstrous things are a level of just like,
no.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Even like
that it just can't.
Yeah, like, and I would even say like comparing like the murder of all the elk in Only Good Indians versus like just the historical retelling of what happened to the buffalo, like the idea of like luring them off cliffs, like what? And they have a similar thing too, like the elk being sketchy around train tracks, right? Like there's so much of that like sinister to animals that's like almost like a soft opening for like, oh, but just wait till you see what they did to the people, to the other humans.
Yeah.